Very nice. Very nice. Tonight we're going to talk about love's power over rudeness. 1 Corinthians 13, children. 1 Corinthians 13. 1 Corinthians 13. That's after 1 Corinthians 12 and before 14. In case you were lost. I'm going to help you find it there. We'll start at verse 4. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. Love's power over rudeness. You know, love and rudeness are diametrically opposed. They are two things that cannot exist at the same time. We are called to speak the truth, but to speak it in love. If true love is exhibited in a person's life, the result will not be rudeness, but courtesy. We've been looking at Paul's description of love in this chapter, and we have come into a section that describes what love is not. The third thing love is not is written in King James language, which says love does not behave itself unseemly. Love does not behave itself unseemly. You're like, what does that mean? You know, if you don't understand what it means, you might just read right over it, as you're reading through the chapter. But what that means is love is not rude. The opposite of rudeness is courtesy. God's agape love is marked by being courteous. The root word for unseemly is our English word scheme or schematic, which literally refers to the shape of something. The King James says it does not behave itself unseemly. We have come to understand that phrase to mean it acts with tact or etiquette. But the literal translation is that love is not without shape. When we look at 1 Corinthians 12:23, be a couple... Going to be like probably the same page. It says, it's the same word, but it's translated differently. It says, and those members of the body which we think to be less honorable, the uncomely members, the ones without shape. It's also used in Romans 1:27 to describe the conduct of a man having inappropriate relations with somebody of the same gender. That is unseemly, Paul says. It's not part of God's perfection. It's not part of what God wants. It's out of shape. It's not right. Revelation 16:15, the same word is translated by the word shame. To be unseemly or uncomely is to act without shame. And literally the word has come down to us to mean to act rudely, to act without common courtesy for the other person. Have you ever known somebody who said the wrong thing at the wrong time? It seems like improper in the context, or it's just wrong. Somebody who, to have something to say, like who laughs in your time of sorrow, or rebukes you when they should say something encouraging, or any of those type of things. Who the situation, they act in a way that doesn't fit the situation, right? All of those are responses that are inappropriate or out of shape. Paul's point is that some things don't make sense if they're not done right in the right situation. They're rude. It's rude. When you're coming to somebody for comfort and they, want to lecture you, it's not the right response, right? If your dog just got hit by a car and they're like, well, I never liked the dog anyways. That's not the right response, Well, don't look at me like that. Paul says agape love is never rude. It is always courteous. This phrase has also been translated, love does not behave gracelessly. Love is gracious. Graciousness should begin with other Christians. Many Christians have forfeited their opportunity for witnesses by being rude to unbelievers. Sometimes thinking that, I'm being an aggressive evangelist. Kicking that door in, and I'm telling that guy, I'm preaching it to him, while holding him down, tackling him, choking him around the neck. Repent, sinner, repent. Okay. Do you think that's being aggressive or rude?
Rude.
Yeah, it's rude. I mean, it's not doing it the right way. There's people who have lost their testimony because of their approach to, evangelism and witnessing. Making remarks that they shouldn't have, beforehand and things like that. When Paul wrote these words, he was writing to a church that really needed the message. Corinth was a mess. They were models of rude behavior. Acting unseemly was their trademark, okay? The Corinthian Christians, everything they did was that way. They came together to celebrate the Lord's Supper. They were self-centered. They were offensive. It says in 1 Corinthians 11:21 that each one took his own supper first. No one waited. One person was hungry. One person was drunk. It was just a mess as far as rudeness. During worship services, they all tried to speak at once. Everybody had something to say. Everybody jumped up and tried to talk at once. One would stand up with the word of knowledge. Another person would speak in tongues. Everyone tried to be the most dramatic, they tried to be the most prominent. They wanted the attention. They wanted, to receive the glory. Everything they done was dishonorable and it was in disorder. Paul wrote to them and said, if you have love, you will not be rude, you will be courteous. We're going to look at 3 areas that we should know about concerning courtesy as a response of a loving heart. In the last verse of 1 Corinthians 14, it says, let all things be done decently and in order. That's symmetrical. It's in a proper order. It's when things are done in a proper order. Someone has said the word describes the eternal fitness of things. It speaks of the best way, the most appropriate way to do something. Courtesy is the opposite of rudeness, we mentioned, and it's a characteristic in our lives that keeps us from getting out of perspective. It's a glue that kind of bonds us together into a whole. Have you ever seen somebody whose commitment to being honest was in disagreement with their love? You ever see somebody say, well, I'm just forward, I'm just blunt, I tell it like it is. When I got something to say, I'm going to say it. You think that's love? What do you think that is?
Being rude.
It's being rude. What else? Starts with a P.
Pride.
Pride. Yeah, it's pride. It's a pride issue. Many people blame their temperaments, but it has nothing to do with that. It's good to be honest. It is good to be honest. It's good to be straightforward. But courtesy will make that truth, it makes it soft to where the person who is receiving it can accept it in the right, gracious way. Whenever people say I speak my mind or I speak the truth, it's pretty sure that they don't have this whole courtesy thing down. It's just kind of like you can just tell, like, yeah, I'm blunt, I tell it like it is, I don't care. I work with people like that who, they'll say some of the rudest stuff and be like, yeah, it's just who I am. Like, well, sure, but that's still not right. Sometimes our religious zealousness gets in the way of our sympathy. Have you ever seen somebody who is having an issue, sickness or something, or heard about something to where somebody's like, well, you're obviously doing something wrong. They think they're Nathan the prophet, coming up to him and saying, what you need to do, examine your life, find out what sins you're committing, and repent of it. It's like Job's comforters, when there's something going on, the first thing that they want to do is say, well, you're sinning and there's something you need to get fixed. It's possible sickness and things like that, suffering can be caused by sin, but does that guarantee that it's caused by sin? No, of course not. Of course not. It is unloving and unkind, and it does not reflect God's love if that's how you approach somebody who's hurting. Courtesy is love symmetry. It holds all other virtues together and keeps one from running away with the other. It keeps this truth and this sympathy thing kind of in balance. Courtesy is also love simplicity. Courtesy is one of those things that is so simple, we forget about it. Most of us want to get involved in the big things a church does, in a loving outreach. But we forget about some of the other things too. Paul talks about martyrdom and giving money and all the really big things. But courtesy is not something big. It's in the little things. It's the little simple things, the day-to-day things. It's like you take a person who doesn't have a whole lot of education, and a person who doesn't have a whole lot of education, if they're put in a situation and they're a loving, courteous person, they will know how to respond. Like you put somebody who's poor, who's got a really good, courteous attitude in the presence of royalty, they're going to respond the right way. They're going to say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, do all the appropriate things. They just know what to do. They know what to do. They just know, they know how to act. They know how to do the little things. It is the little things that make a big difference in a relationship between people. When you love someone, you will go out of your way to do the little things that no one else would do. When you love someone, you put that person uppermost in your thoughts and actions. Love does not behave in a discourteous manner. Love thinks about little ways to express itself. Courtesy is love in the little things. It is distilling love down to the common everyday acts that we do to express our affinity for other people. What did Jim Berg say on Sunday? We try to please the people we love the most, right? The person we love the most is the one that we please. You guys remember that? You know, if we love somebody else more than we love ourselves, we're going to try to please them. We're going to do everything that we can to please them. You know, we're going to be gentle. You know, we're going to be kind. We're going to be patient with them. We're going to reflect these things. You know, love is patient. Love is kind. You know, we'll go through and carry out all the different attributes in this chapter to them. You know, not be rude. You know, not be disengaged. And courtesy is love's sensitivity. The one who allows the love of Christ to control him is not hard or rude, harsh or crude. He is not rough and tough, but gentle. While the word courteous in the English language originally came from the word court and suggested the manners which prevailed in the palaces of kings and queens, it eventually came to mean showing consideration for other people and their feelings. It acts with tact. You know, I think tact is one of the things that's really missing in the world today. Everybody's very quick to tell the truth, but they don't know how to do it. It's being concerned for other people. It's the proper thing in the proper time in the proper way. You guys have heard of John Wesley? Famous Methodist preacher. He was traveling in a coach with the army officer. And the army officer was committed to profanity. The guy had a potty mouth. So Wesley, you know, the guy was intelligent, you know, agreeable. So Wesley came to the guy who, he was going to be traveling with them, and he said, he said, I will take great pleasure, he said, I would like to ask you to do one simple favor if you would for me. And the guy, you know, said, okay, I'll do it. Then Wesley said, we have a long way to go. We're going to be traveling together for the next several days. And I would like for you to promise me that if I should so forget myself as to begin to swear, that you would kindly reprove me. Do you think the officer got the point? Wesley saying, hey, you know, knowing the guy's got a problem with his language, he says, hey, if I start to say something that I shouldn't, can you reprove me? I mean, that's a really gentle way to do it. You know, not saying anything about the other person. You know, saying it, hey, if I do something like that, I need you to help me. You know, knowing how to relate to the person. You know, how would you have handled that situation if somebody was using inappropriate language in your presence? Would you have walked up and said, where did you learn to talk like that? A pig pen? You know, do you speak with the same mouth you eat from? Your mouth is filthy. You know, I've heard things like that. A person might quit swearing around you, but you're definitely not going to have a good friendship with them. Courteous love is sensitive to where the other person is, what their context is. It's making a good conversation. As Christians, one of the hardest things is to disagree agreeably. You ever heard of that? You can agree to disagree agreeably. To where even if you don't agree with somebody, you don't have to be rude, you don't have to be disrespectful, you can be gentle, you can be kind, and, you know, do it in a loving way. So I don't know many of your situations day to day. I see you a couple times a week. That's about it. But here are some questions here for you to consider. Do you snub or ignore other people? When you are spoken to, how do you respond? Are you sensitive to the needs and feelings of other people? Are you courteous to other people even if they don't fit into your plans? How do you respond when you're interrupted when you're doing something? Do you do little things that make it easier for people? Do you do things just to be an encouragement to people without expecting anything in return? Are you willing to do nice things to people the way that they like things to be done? I mean, do you open the door for other people? Do you say thank you? Do you say please? Those type of things? You know, most Christians fall short of the standards of etiquette that the world has come to take for granted. And it's sad because I think it should start in the church. We should be the most thankful. We should be the most loving. We should be the most kind people that there are. Basically, to sum up what Paul's saying, he says, love is good manners. Love is courteous. It's not rude. You know, think of the conversations that you've had with people in the past 3 or 4 days. How effectively have you communicated the truth is not the issue. You can get your point across. But you can say it the wrong way. You can say all the right things, but say it in the wrong way. Is your love rude or is it courteous? So think about that. That's kind of the challenge tonight. How do you respond to people? Do you respond in a rude way or do you do it in a courteous way? I mean, it is so easy to be short. I mean, it doesn't take any work at all to be short with somebody, to have a rude, snapping remark. You know, somebody asks you a question, you know, that may be a stupid question. You give them a sarcastic remark. You know, to where you focus on yourself and not other people. You know, you're worrying about everything you, and, you know, it's not thinking about other people. Not being tactful. You know, somebody's hamster died. So you're like, hey, can I flush your hamster or something? I don't know. I don't even know if you could flush a hamster. I don't know. But anyways, so how do you respond to people? Are you rude or are you courteous? If I was to ask your parents how you act at home, what do you think they'd say? I should go ask them and see what they say. Give you guys a report card. Wah, wah, wah. No, I won't do that. Any questions or comments? My parents are like old and I never see them, so.
And they'll just remember how you were.
I was a horrible child. We won't go there. You guys have any questions or comments about this? Rudeness and courtesy?
So have fun with them.
Ask your grandma.
Oh no.
Actually, she's right here. No, I'm just kidding. I plotted to have your parents show up here tonight. That's what I should have done. I should have made a parents' night where I invited all your parents to come in here and sit. Listen.
My mom usually sits here.
I
Or
know.
outside the door.
I wish she was here listening right now. She'll be thinking of, oh yeah, my child. Yeah. Heard stories about you. Any questions or comments?
You haven't heard the lipstick story.
No, and I probably wouldn't want to either.
Grandma can tell stories about all y'all.
Not me.
Don't touch my hand.
Okay, any questions, comments?
Nobody else remembers that?
I do.